Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gathered all the sources, the articles, the interviews, everything we could find, and we're here to cut right through it all.
Yeah, get straight to the core of what you need to know.
And today, we are looking at a really fascinating career path. Someone who blended history, comedy, and, well, a fair bit of improvisation.
We're talking about Derek Waters?
Exactly. Actor, comedian, writer, producer, director. The guy wears a lot of hats. Best known, of course, for Drunk History.
That's right. A show that sounds completely ridiculous on paper, historians telling stories while, hammered but somehow became this huge award-winning thing.
So our mission today, pretty straightforward. We've got the background, the early stumbles, those key partnerships, and then the explosion of Drunk History. We want to pull out the elements that really define his journey.
And show how this, really unconventional idea, something born outside the usual TV machine, actually got major, major recognition.
And why should you, listening right now, care about this deep dive?
Well, think about this. Waters himself got 8 Primetime Emmy Award nominations for that show. 8. That tells you something.
It really does. This isn't just, oh, here's a funny show. It's about how a unique, maybe even quirky comedic vision, when it's built on a solid structure, can actually win big in the mainstream. It's kind of a blueprint.
Definitely. So where do we start?
Okay, let's begin right at the beginning. We need to understand the foundation, his early life, because honestly, it wasn't the path you'd expect for an LA comedy guy.
All right, so we start on the East Coast. Mid-Atlantic. Derek Waters, born and raised in Lutherville, Maryland.
Kept it local for school too, right?
Yeah, attended Tyson High School right there in Towson, Maryland. Graduated in '98. After that, he did some studies at the Community College of Baltimore County.
Okay, so standard East Coast start.
Yeah.
But the sources mention some really crucial personal stuff here, things that might explain where his creative style comes from.
Absolutely. This is where it gets interesting beyond just the biofacts. We know Waters is Jewish, but maybe more significant, especially for his comedy, he's dyslexic.
And was in special education in school.
Right. And, we often think of learning differences as just hurdles. But for creative people, sometimes they force you to find really unique solutions.
How so?
Well, dyslexia, difficulty with reading, interpreting symbols, it often pushes people to develop these incredibly specific, sometimes highly visual or structural ways to just process information, to make sense of it. Your brain has to build its own order.
That makes so much sense when you think about Drunk History. The whole show is about taking total chaos.
Right. The narrator is slurring, jumping around. It's a mess, information-wise.
And Waters, as the director, the editor, has to turn that auditory mess into crystal clear, perfectly structured, visually polished reenactments.
Exactly. It's like he built a career doing professionally what his brain maybe had to learn to do personally, creating a clear structure to handle messy, complex input, managing cognitive chaos, basically.
Wow, that structural thing feels key. And maybe relying on comedic timing, visuals, ways to get ideas across quickly when words are tricky.
Precisely.
Right.
But this creative path, this wasn't the first plan. Not at all.
Ah, right, the sports dream.
Yeah, his first ambition, professional baseball player.
A classic story. Focused on sports, wanted to play ball.
But then, the big turning point, didn't make the high school team.
Ouch. That's a tough public setback for a kid. Demands a rethink.
And what he did next is really insightful, I think. He didn't just, quit sports.
No. What did he do?
He became a Little League umpire.
An umpire. Huh.
Yeah.
That's specific. Why that?
Think about it. He goes from wanting to be the player, the center of the action, to being the guy enforcing the rules, the impartial observer applying a rigid structure.
So instead of performing, he's managing the performance.
Kind of. It's a different type of performance, maybe. An umpire is all about imposing structure on the game's chaos. You need quick judgment, deep understanding of the rules, the system. It shows this early fascination with discipline, with systems, even after a failure. He chose order over action, in a way.
That umpire detail, it really lands differently now. It foreshadows that structural mindset he carries forward.
Definitely. And that's the mindset he takes when he finally pivots to the arts for real. The year after high school, 1999, he makes a big move.
Heads north, right? To Canada.
Yep, Toronto. Specifically to attend Second City, formal training in sketch and improv comedy.
Okay, Second City. That's the crucible. That's where the structure meets the stage.
And Second City isn't known for, loosey-goosey stuff. It breeds disciplined comedians, people who understand ensemble work, the game of the scene.
Right, finding the comedic pattern, repeating it. It's all structural, really. listening, processing, integrating chaos like audience suggestions into a stable framework.
It's the perfect training ground for him, setting him up for these high-concept, tightly structured formats he becomes known for.
Okay, so Second City training under his belt. Next stop, inevitably, L.A.
Right, the classic comedian move. Starts the grind out in Los Angeles. But his day job, his non-acting job, actually tells us something interesting. He worked at Tower Video.
Tower Video. Wow, blast from the past. Not waiting tables then. He's immersed in movies.
Exactly. And the sources say he liked the job. Why? Because it exposed him to all these independent films he hadn't seen.
Ah, so not just mainstream Hollywood. He's soaking up the indie stuff, the unconventional, maybe raw narratives.
Yeah, and that's important. It shows this early interest outside the mainstream, where stories can be more subjective, characters may be a bit messier, structure more experimental. It kind of primes him for embracing that sort of chaotic reality later, which is the opposite of polished network TV. Paves the way for that Mark Borchardt influence we'll get to.
Okay, interesting. So he's in L.A. working at Tower Video, starting the performance grind around 2000. And this is when he forms a really crucial partnership.
Yes. The comedy duo, Derek and Simon, with Simon Helberg.
Simon Helberg, pre-Big Bang Theory fame.
That's the one. And this partnership wasn't just about doing sketches together. They were smart about how they built their presence. They jumped onto the early digital scene.
The web series, right. Derek and Simon. The show.
Yeah, and the platform matters here. They were on Super Deluxe.
Super Deluxe, I remember that. It wasn't just YouTube, it was Turner Broadcasting's experiment, right?
Yeah.
Kind of edgy, surreal stuff. HBO's parent company trying to figure out online comedy.
Exactly. Putting their stuff there was strategic. It targeted an audience that got high concept, maybe slightly absurd humor. But even more important, who they made it with.
Who was that?
Bob Odenkirk.
Wow, okay, Bob Odenkirk?
Yeah.
Mr. Show? That's a huge collaborator to get early on.
Huge. And Odenkirk knows how to blend that rapid-fire, chaotic sketch energy with a solid structure. Working with him, it's a massive stamp of approval. It shows Waters is already linking up with people who get that blend of absurdity and discipline, the perfect kind of mentor for him.
So they're doing the web series, but also bridging into more traditional stuff.
Yeah, they made a couple of short films that really boosted their profile.
What a pity card.
Derek and Simon.
A pity card, yeah.
And look who they got to be in it. Zach Galifianakis and Bill Hader.
Whoa. Getting names like Hader and Galifianakis in your indie short, that's more than just calling in favors. That means respected people thought their stuff was genuinely funny and smart.
Totally. And then another one, Derek and Simon, A Bee and a Cigarette? With Casey Wilson and Emily Rutherford. It just showed they had a solid network and a style, kind of deadpan, awkward, relationship focus that attracted great talent.
And the industry proper noticed.
Big time. In 2005, Derek and Simon landed a pilot deal with HBO.
HBO. For a
Yeah.
sketch duo.
Yeah.
That's a really big deal. Premium cable saying, okay, these guys have something bankable, something structured enough for us. Even if it didn't go to series, getting that deal is major validation.
For sure. And while all this is happening, the web stuff, the shorts, the HBO deal Waters is also getting his feet wet in traditional TV. Back in 2003, he was already co-starring in an ABC sitcom, Married to the Kellys.
So he wasn't putting all his eggs in one basket. He's doing network TV, experimental web comedy, premium cable development, all at the same time.
That versatility is key. He's learning all the different languages of comedy production simultaneously.
All right, let's zoom in on Waters just as an actor for a bit.
Sure.
Because he worked consistently, right, since the early 2000s.
Mhm.
And his resume is, well, it's long and varied.
It really is, and that breadth tells you a lot. He's got that Second City adaptability. He can slot into almost any comedic style, which makes him a great supporting player, but also hints at why he'd be a good director later, someone who understands different comedic rhythms.
Okay, so let's not just list the shows. Let's think about the skills. He was on The League.
Right. The League is famous for heavy improvisation, right? Long riffs, actors having to react and build on unexpected lines.
How does that connect?
Well, managing a drunk narrator later, it's kind of similar. You're dealing with unpredictable, unscripted input, and you have to react, incorporate it, keep the scene or the story moving. The League was like improv training for managing narrative chaos.
Okay, interesting. Contrast that with something like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Much tighter scripting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But manic energy.
Totally different demand. Sunny needs absolute commitment to often ridiculous character behavior within a very structured, scripted framework. That skill playing absurdity with total deadpan sincerity is crucial for the drunk history reenactments.
Right. because the actors in the reenactments are saying these slurred, nonsensical lines, but they have to deliver them like serious period dialogue.
Exactly. The comedy relies on their straight-faced commitment. He practiced that on Sunny, on Marin, Happy Endings, even on broader shows like Suburgatory or The Middle.
He really did cover the map. Dark cable comedies, network family sitcoms like The Middle, the weirdness of Santa Clarita Diet.
And don't forget his presence on those earlier, often edgier platforms. The Sarah Silverman program, Funny or Die presents, Nick Swartzen's Pretend Time. Again, he's consistently popping up where comedy is experimenting and evolving. He's learning the mechanics.
Film roles, too. Things like The Brothers Solomon, Hall Pass, but also Your Consideration.
The Christopher Guest movie? That's a huge signpost, working on a guest set. That's a masterclass in balancing improv with rigid adherence to character and format. Precision within chaos.
Which sounds very relevant. But you mentioned a specific voice acting role.
Yes. This one feels like a perfect little precursor. 2012, shut up. Cartoon series called Weasel Town.
Huh?
He starred with Jason Ritter.
Okay. And his character?
He voiced Dipster. And the description of Dipster is gold. He's described as a self-centered, non-sequitur spouting weasel.
A self-centered, non-sequitur spouting weasel. That's quite the character description.
Isn't it great? But analytically, it's spot on. Non-sequitur spouting. That's delivering controlled absurdity. It's chaos, unrelated bits, maybe delivered with confidence or authority.
You got the mini drunk history narrator.
Pretty much. He's practicing taking chaotic auditory input, the non-sequiturs, and delivering it straight, or reacting to it straight. It's voice acting, yeah, but it's also mastering that structured chaos right before drunk history really takes off.
Okay, wow. So we've got this journey. East Coast kid, dyslexia fosters a structural mind, fails at baseball, but masters being the rule enforcer umpire, finds comedy via disciplined improv, grinds it out in L.A., proving he can do any style on any platform.
And all those threads, every single one leads directly into the project that combined all those skills, right? The defining achievement, drunk history. But again, just like his early web work, we have to stress this wasn't some polished pitch accepted overnight by a network. It grew organically, again, showing how vital those non-traditional platforms were for him.
Let's unpack that origin. Waters co-created it, hosts it, ran 6 seasons, 2013 to 2019 on Comedy Central, but it started smaller.
Much smaller. It began as a series of shorts for Funny or Die.
Funny or Die again. Perfect place to test something weird.
Exactly. It let him try out this bizarre, high-concept format without the pressure of network notes or needing a huge initial investment. The format kind of needs high production value for the joke. To land the contrast is key. But Funny or Die let him prove the concept first. It was a low-risk lab for refining the structure.
And it got noticed quickly, didn't it win something major early on?
Yeah, this is crucial. Before it was even a TV show, the short film version won the jury prize for short filmmaking at the Sundance Film Festival.
Sundance. That's massive validation. It takes this idea that sounds, frankly, kind of low-browed drunk people talking history and proves it has genuine filmmaking chops, structure, and serious comedic craft behind it.
Totally legitimized it. So when Comedy Central picked it up, it already had buzz and credibility. And then the awards just kept coming.
17 Primetime Emmy nominations for the series overall. That's staggering for a show like this.
It really is. Sustained critical acclaim for such an unconventional premise. It dominated its niche.
And for Waters himself, you mentioned 8 nominations, covering acting, writing, producing, directing.
Right, which proves he wasn't just the guy introducing the segments. He was the driving force, the architect behind its success.
Okay, let's talk about the structure of the show itself, because this feels like where the dyslexia, the umpire thing, the improv, it all comes together.
It's totally driven by its structure. Waters is the host, yeah, but he's more like the sober anchor in a sea of narrative chaos. His job is guiding, managing, editing in his head as it happens.
It sounds like a nightmare directing job, honestly. Yeah. You take this rambling, slurred, subjective story.
Full of non-sequiturs like Dipster the Weasel.
Right, and then you have to stage these high-budget costume drama reenactments that perfectly lip-sync the drunken rambling, but with actors playing it totally straight.
The editing must be intense. The sources confirm it's incredibly rigorous. The show is like the sophisticated scaffolding. They take the messy audio track, and Waters' structural vision guides them in building this coherent, visually polished reenactment around it.
So even when the narration is falling apart, the visual storytelling is rock solid. It's that structure again.
Exactly. It's imposing order. It's ensuring clarity and structure even when the source material is pure chaos.
So what does this mean for his career arc? It feels like he perfectly synthesized everything he'd done before into this one thing.
Absolutely. His Second City improv skills helped him manage the unpredictable narrators. His decade of acting gave him the connections for guest stars and the understanding of performance. His digital experience taught him how to make things punchy and viral. And that underlying need to manage information complexity, maybe stemming from the dyslexia, drove the whole structural approach.
Drunk History basically proved that you can take a simple, raw, maybe even messy idea.
And if you execute it with rigorous production quality and a strong editorial structure, you can create a massive hit that gets mainstream awards. The concept sounds chaotic, but the execution is pure, disciplined order.
Okay, to really get inside Waters' head, his specific style, that deadpan, observational, but super structured thing, we need to look at his influences. Who shaped that aesthetic? The sources are pretty clear on this.
Yeah, this is where it clicks perfectly. He names two specific influences, and they seem kind of different at first, but together they explain Drunk History completely. Mark Borchardt and Christopher Guest.
Okay, let's break that down. Christopher Guest, master of the mockumentary. Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show.
Right. Guest's films are all about precision, meticulous detail, great costumes, actors who are deeply, sincerely committed to the absurd reality of film. The comedy comes from the gap between how seriously the form is treated and how silly the content often is.
So Guest represents the look of the reenactments in Drunk History.
Yeah.
The polish, the period detail, the serious actors.
Exactly. Guest is the order, the structure, the commitment, the high production value applied to the reenactment.
Okay, so who's Borchardt?
Mark Borchardt. He's the subject of that amazing 1999 documentary American Movie. If you haven't seen it, you really should.
It's incredible. He's this super passionate indie filmmaker from Wisconsin trying to make his low-budget horror movie Coven.
Right. Borchardt embodies this raw, passionate, sometimes really messy, deeply personal, almost chaotic energy. He's the struggling artist, pouring his soul into his work against all odds. His world is unfiltered, totally subjective, incredibly genuine.
So Borchardt
is the chaos. He represents the raw, unfiltered, subjective truth of the narration. The drunk storytellers. They are Borchardt. They're passionate, trying to tell a story, maybe meandering, maybe slurring, working with limited resources. It's raw and real.
Wow. So Drunk History forces those two worlds together. The Borchardt chaos of the narration interpreted through the Christopher Guest precision of the reenactment.
That's the engine. The friction between the messy subjective audio and the polished objective visual is where all the comedy sparks fly.
And this loops back to his own story, doesn't it? That early stuff, the dyslexia, special education.
It provides that crucial context. Navigating those challenges likely gave him this deep, maybe unconscious appreciation for clear communication, for building scaffolds to make sense of things.
Waters is the scaffold. He's the one making sure that even when the story itself is a mess, historically dubious because of, well, alcohol, the way it's delivered is solid, structured, visually engaging. He turned a personal challenge into a professional superpower.
That's the blueprint he offers, really. Success didn't come from following the rules. It came from taking a unique, simple idea, executing it flawlessly, and leveraging the network he'd built. Working with Odenkirk early on, the Derek and Simon connections, using Funny or Die that let him scale up. He showed that sometimes your constraints, learning differences, not making the team, can actually guide you to leverage your unique perspective into something totally unexpected and successful.
So for you listening, what's the takeaway? Waters' career is this amazing example of turning a potential vulnerability into a strength by mastering structural translation. He wasn't the star player. He became obsessed with the rules, the structure, the story of the game. He didn't conquer TV first. He mastered the new digital spaces and used that to break into the mainstream on his own terms. Hashtag outro.
So yeah, we've traced this incredible path of Derek Waters. From those East Coast roots, the athletic dream shifting towards that structural umpire mindset, the disciplined improv training at Second City.
Then building that LA ecosystem with Simon Helberg, getting nods from people like Odenkirk, proving his versatility as an actor across every kind of comedy.
Showing he could handle the improv chaos of the league just as well as the tight scripting of network sitcoms, all preparing him for the big one.
Which was Drunk History. Creator, host, director, synthesizing all his skills, imposing that crucial structure on narrative chaos, and earning incredible Emmy recognition for it.
And understanding that unique aesthetic comes from blending the raw passion of Mark Borchardt with the meticulous precision of Christopher Guest. Chaos meets order.
We also saw that pattern. using platforms like Funny or Die, Super Deluxe, the unconventional spaces to test, refine, and launch ideas before hitting the mainstream.
Which brings us to that final question, something for you to think about. Given how Waters used these non-traditional, maybe even experimental platforms to launch a hugely successful award-winning show, how has that landscape changed today?
Yeah, is the next big Emmy-winning comedy phenomenon maybe brewing right now on TikTok? Or some niche streamer? Are the major studios even looking in the right places?
Find your constraint, build your structure, and maybe go make some history. Possibly soberly.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll get you next time.